8. REYNALDO Beckford. During what seemed like a typical day at a Buffalo, New York methadone clinic in late 2022, a man came into the building armed with an AR-15 and started shooting. A security guard named REYNALDO Beckford immediately sprang into action to subdue the gunman. The shooter refused to take his finger off the trigger, and it took the help of another security guard and bystander to get full control over the suspect. Surveillance footage of the harrowing takedown shows Beckford grabbing the armed man and the gun from behind and struggling with him before the suspect finally stops fighting back. Another clip shows the guards tackling the gunman outside the building and taking the gun away there. They held him to the ground for a few minutes until police arrived. Thanks to Beckford's quick thinking and bravery, nobody was injured. The suspect, 48-year-old Jeremy Griffin, was taken into custody and now faces charges in connection to the incident. Beckford, who has over 20 years of experience working in the security industry, told local news station WKBW that he feared for his life and went into survival mode as soon as he saw the armed man. He said that he didn't want to be praised for being a hero, but that he was simply doing his job. 7. Gene Assam. While volunteering as a security guard at the New Life Church in Colorado Springs back in 2007, 42-year-old former police officer Gene Assam was on high alert. Just one night before, a gunman had fatally shot 2 people at a church in the nearby city of Arvada outside Denver. Assam's worst fear was confirmed when a man later identified as 24-year-old Matthew Murray began to open fire in the parking lot, shooting 5 and killing 2 parishioners. He then made his way inside, but he didn't expect to meet an armed security guard. Murray fired at Assam, who returned the favor and shot him. She survived the shooting with no injuries, and Murray took his own life quickly after being wounded in the exchange. Speaking with the Denver Gazette in a 2021 interview, Assam said that investigators found over 3,000 rounds of ammunition in the trunk of Murray's car, as well as an AK-47 and a map marking the locations of other churches in the area. In her words, he was going to keep killing until he ran out of ammunition. Over the next couple of years, Assam gave motivational speeches and talked to audiences around the country about her experience. She also continued working as a private security guard and investigator. In 2011, she accused the New Life Church of asking her to leave the congregation after she came out as gay. She revealed this information during a public fundraiser for a local pride center. A church spokesperson denied these allegations, stating that the institution would never ask someone to leave because of their orientation, and said that Assam will always be remembered as a hero at New Life. 6. Russell LEDET. During the 4 years he spent working as a security guard for the Baton Rouge General Medical Center in Louisiana, Navy veteran Russell LEDET began entertaining the idea of becoming a doctor. He was in college taking classes at the time, but had initially planned to become a social worker. Until then, he'd never seriously considered the medical field. While carefully weighing future prospects, he mustered up the courage to ask surgical resident Patrick Griefenstein if he could shadow him, and was surprised to get a yes. LEDET later earned his PhD in molecular oncology from New York University in 2018. He earned a full scholarship to Tulane University School of Medicine in New Orleans, and in 2020 returned to the Baton Rouge General Medical Center as a third-year medical student. LEDET told the Washington Post that he plans to specialize mainly in pediatrics, psychiatry, and child and adolescent psychiatry. He said that he wanted to help struggling youth and to focus on making mental health services accessible to marginalized communities. In joining the 5% of American physicians who are African American, LEDET was also dedicated to helping aspiring Black students pursue a higher education. He founded a non-profit called the 15 White Coats, which seeks to strengthen and diversify the medical field by funding scholarships for minority students and covering the cost of applying to medical school. After returning to Baton Rouge, LEDET ran into former co-workers who were incredibly proud that he followed his dreams and traded in his security uniform for scrubs. While his growing list of accomplishments and his journey to success are impressive, his ambition to change the world and strive for a more equal society is beyond inspiring. 5. Frank Wills. In 1972, while working the night shift as the Watergate office complex's security guard in Washington, D.C., 24-year-old Frank Wills noticed some masking tape covering the locks of a stairwell door in the parking garage. He ripped it off, only to notice later on that it had been reapplied. Believing that the tape was evidence of a burglary, Wills called the cops. He had no idea he was reporting what would turn out to be the biggest political scandal in American history. Police officers soon discovered that the Democratic National Committee offices on the building's 6th floor had been ransacked. 5 men were arrested, including 3 Cuban nationals and a former CIA employee. They had bugging equipment and thousands in cash, which was traced to the Nixon administration's Committee for Re-election. Nixon resigned after he was caught trying to cover up his involvement in the break-in and obstructing the investigation. Wills never received the credit he deserved for alerting authorities to the crime. Even worse, he left his security job the next year and struggled to find steady employment in the area afterward, leading him to believe employers were either afraid to hire him or instructed not to. Investigative journalist Bob Woodward, who covered the scandal for The Washington Post, described Wills as the only one in Watergate who did his job perfectly, and his 911 call as one of the most important phone calls in American history. Yet, sadly, Wills never profited from his role like others involved, including some of the criminals who were convicted for the incident. He died from a brain tumor in 2000 and was remembered for his outstanding kindness towards others, which persisted even after he began feeling bitter about how doing the right thing affected his life so negatively. 4. Bobby Daniels. One day in 2015, 48-year-old off-duty security guard Bobby Daniels got word that his 25-year-old son Bias was in the midst of a mental breakdown and had held the security guard of a Douglasville, Georgia trailer park hostage at gunpoint. At the same time, 911 dispatchers were also notified. Douglas County Sheriff's deputies and Daniels both rushed to the crime scene. Daniels got there first and tried to reason with his son. Just minutes later, a sheriff's deputy shot the suspect twice. He died from the injuries. His loved ones insisted that he was just trying to de-escalate the situation involving his son, who pointed his gun at Bobby, forcing him to sit down in his car. By the time deputies arrived, Daniels had made progress with calming Bias and had convinced him to put his weapon on the hood of the vehicle. According to the Daniels family, Bias took a step toward the gun, and Bobby tried swatting it away to prevent the troubled man from grabbing it. The sheriff's office claimed that Bobby took the gun and pointed it at the deputy, but his relatives were outraged by the allegations. They described the longtime security guard, Navy veteran and father of 5 as a firm defender of law enforcement and said he would never point a gun at an active officer. To add to the confusion, the Georgia Bureau of Investigations concluded that Bobby and Bias fought over the weapon and that it was pointed at a deputy at some point during the struggle, prompting him to fire at the pair. After the shooting, Bias grabbed the gun and escaped on foot, but was later arrested on multiple charges. While it's unclear whether or not the Daniels family followed through with plans to sue the sheriff's department, they adamantly stood by their story that Bobby died protecting both his son and the responding deputies. Speaking with the Washington Post after the tragedy, their attorney Chris Stewart urged the sheriff's office to acknowledge the mistaken decision to fire at a man they had no reason to shoot at. The agency never admitted to any wrongdoings though. 3. Security guard versus knife-wielding suspect. On September 11, 2015, the 14th anniversary of the World Trade Center terrorist attacks, complete mayhem broke out at Union Station in Washington, D.C., when travelers heard gunfire and rushed for cover. A security guard had shot a man who was quickly rushed to hospital and later died of his injuries. The station was immediately evacuated and train service was suspended while law enforcement investigated. During questioning, police learned that a woman had approached an unarmed security guard and accused 57-year-old William Thomas Wilson Jr. of threatening to kill her. She said she had a restraining order against him. When another nearby unarmed guard tried to intervene, Wilson pulled out a knife and stabbed the woman. 3. Armed security guards rushed over and ordered him to drop the knife, but he refused and tried leaving on foot. One of the guards tried subduing the suspect, who pointed a knife at him, prompting him to pull out his gun and fire one shot. The guard told Wilson to drop the knife in his hand, but the man attempted to flee and threatened the guard, who fired in response. Business at the station resumed as normal less than 1 hour later. While the sound of gunfire understandably caused panic to spread, and the fatal ending to the confrontation was less than ideal, the guard did what he thought was necessary to stop the suspect from hurting anyone else. After a lengthy investigation, federal prosecutors declined to press charges against the security officer, citing insufficient evidence to prove that he acted with criminal intent or excessive force. 2. Aaron Salter. On May 14, 2022, a deranged white supremacist named Peyton Gendron drove to a predominantly black neighborhood in Buffalo, New York, and opened fire with a semi-automatic rifle as he approached the entrance of Tops Market. He live-streamed the carnage online using a GoPro camera. Gendron continued shooting inside the store, where he shot 8 more people while shouting racial slurs. In the meantime, customers and employees hid in a break room, where they barricaded the door with a desk. They also hid in a walk-in cooler, where they were protected from the onslaught of bullets by milk jugs lining the shelves. 10 people died, including a police officer, and 4 others were injured before Gendron dropped his weapon and surrendered. Among the victims was 55-year-old retired police officer Aaron Salter, who was working at the property as a security guard. He fired at Gendron multiple times and struck him at least once, but the bullets were ineffective since the shooter was wearing a bulletproof vest. Salter died in his efforts to stop Gendron. Police Commissioner Joseph Gramaglia told the Buffalo News that Salter's brave actions helped slow Gendron down, giving people enough time to run. Those who knew the beloved guard said he would have done anything in his power to stop the massacre, including giving his own life to uphold the oath he took to serve and protect others when he became a police officer. He continued to live by this oath even after retirement. 1. MATEUSZ BIAŁKOWSKI. Security guard MATEUSZ BIAŁKOWSKI was driving home after working the night shift in northern Poland when a distressed man jumped into the road. BIAŁKOWSKI pulled over thinking the guy was drunk or on drugs, only to learn that his pregnant wife needed medical care. They drove to the man's house, where the woman was in labor on the living room floor. There were several other adults there, but they were clearly too shocked and terrified to effectively help with the situation at hand. Knowing that he was the only person who was calm enough to help, he called emergency services. The baby's head was already visible though, and it was too late to wait for paramedics. The emergency dispatcher guided BIAŁKOWSKI over the phone as he delivered the child. He had no previous experience doing so, and later told the First News that he was terrified of accidentally harming the baby when the dispatcher instructed him to clear the newborn's mouth so she could start breathing. But he did exactly as he was told and continued with the delivery. Much to his relief, and the relief of everyone around, the baby Samira soon started to cry. The birth was over by the time the ambulance got there, and the new dad, who'd flagged down BIAŁKOWSKI during his drive home from work, expressed deep gratitude to the off-duty security guard for stepping in and helping a complete stranger. Thanks for watching. Would you rather heroically save someone's life on the job, or catch a corrupt high-level politician red-handed in the middle of committing a crime? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.